The International Criminal Court and other international legal bodies have reportedly declared that Nnamdi Kanu was abducted illegally in Kenya and brought to Nigeria unlawfully, making any trial in Nigeria fundamentally flawed. A representative from the United States attended the last court session, and Russia is reportedly planning to send observers to Nnamdi Kanu's upcoming trial on July 18, 2025, showing growing global interest. A federal high court in Owerri, Imo State, cleared Chika Edoziem, a key IPOB figure previously linked to Nnamdi Kanu, of all terrorism and criminal charges, weakening the DSS's narrative. The Federal High Court in Abuja has allegedly dropped all evidence presented by the Department of State Services, DSS, against Nnamdi Kanu, marking a shocking legal development in his favor. The United States of Biafra is reportedly involved in an ongoing court case in Washington, D.C., and has hired 8 lawyers and 10 legal advisors to confront the Nigerian government's legal representatives internationally. The British government has now officially intervened in Nnamdi Kanu's case, sending representatives to visit him in DSS custody and pledging to work with his legal team, reaffirming his status as a British citizen. John Stein, the governor of North Carolina, allegedly declared a public holiday in support of the United States of Biafra, USB, and instructed the U.S. court observer in Nigeria to monitor and report all aspects of Nnamdi Kanu's trial. Citing a 2022 BBC report, the court is again referencing that Nnamdi Kanu was abducted unlawfully and cannot be prosecuted under Nigerian law due to the flawed extradition process. The presence of legal observers from both the United States and Russia is expected to increase pressure on the Nigerian judiciary to handle Nnamdi Kanu's case with transparency and adherence to international law. Meanwhile, some observers has hints at disturbing developments inside the DSS facility affecting Nnamdi Kanu's well-being. The day the news broke about Nnamdi Kanu's latest courtroom development, many people across the southeastern region of Nigeria were glued to their radios, phones, and television screens. It was not just another routine hearing. It was the day when justice seemed to finally pierce through a wall that had stood solid for years, keeping Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, in the harsh grip of prolonged detention and controversial legal warfare. What began as a faint hope has now grown into something stronger, a decisive international shift that might finally change the direction of a struggle that has lasted far too long. For many people who have followed the painful journey of Nnamdi Kanu, the latest announcement by international legal bodies, including the International Criminal Court, felt like the crack of dawn after a long, dark night. The International Criminal Court has now reportedly declared that the method by which Nnamdi Kanu was seized in Kenya and taken to Nigeria was not only illegal, but amounted to a serious breach of international law. According to sources close to the court, Nnamdi Kanu was not extradited through any legal process. Instead, what happened was an abduction, plain and simple. He was picked up from Kenya, whisked away without following due legal procedures, and flown into Nigeria in what many have described as a clandestine and forceful operation. That one declaration from the International Criminal Court is more than just a legal opinion. It is a bombshell with the potential to tear apart the very foundation of the trial that the federal government of Nigeria has been building against Nnamdi Kanu. The core legal argument now is that no trial can stand if the accused was brought into the country illegally. It is a principle in both Nigerian law and international law that you cannot benefit from your own wrongdoing. If the Nigerian government did indeed break international laws and abduct Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya, then any trial that follows could be seen as invalid from the start. In a clear sign that this case has gone beyond Nigerian borders, a representative from the government of the United States of America reportedly attended the last court session in Nigeria. This attendance was not just a diplomatic courtesy. It was a message. The United States has begun showing deep interest in ensuring that this case is handled with fairness and transparency. This American presence inside the courtroom is something new. Never before has such high-profile international observation been involved in the courtroom battles over Nnamdi Kanu. But the involvement does not stop with the United States. Russia, a country known for taking strong stances in international politics, is also preparing to send its own legal observers to attend Nnamdi Kanu's next hearing, scheduled for July 18, 2025. That date is now circled in red ink on the calendars of many observers, journalists, activists, and ordinary citizens across Nigeria and beyond. Russia's intention to send a team to the hearing means the case is now seen not just as a national legal matter, but an international concern about human rights, sovereignty, and justice. As these global developments unfold, a separate but related courtroom decision came from the Federal High Court in Owerri, located in Imo State. In that ruling, the court cleared Chika Edoziem, a key figure in the indigenous people of Biafra movement, of all criminal and terrorism-related charges. Chika Edoziem, who had long been associated with Nnamdi Kanu, had been accused by the Department of State Services and other Nigerian security agencies of involvement in activities threatening the country's security. But the judge found no credible evidence to support those accusations. The dismissal of those charges weakens the narrative that the indigenous people of Biafra are terrorists, and it casts further doubt on the prosecution's case against Nnamdi Kanu himself. The bigger bombshell, however, came from the Federal High Court in Abuja. Reports now claim that this court has dropped all the evidence that the Department of State Services submitted against Nnamdi Kanu. Every single piece of material that had been used to argue that Nnamdi Kanu posed a threat to national security or that he had committed crimes against the state has been ruled as inadmissible or irrelevant. This is a huge turning point. It is a legal earthquake. Without evidence, there is no case. And if the court has truly discarded all the Department of State Services documents and claims, then what remains of the prosecution's argument? This stunning development comes at a time when the legal team representing the indigenous people of Biafra has intensified its efforts both within Nigeria and outside its borders. In the capital city of Washington, District of Columbia, in the United States of America, a courtroom battle is quietly unfolding. The United States of Biafra, an advocacy and legal group representing the interest of the Biafran people, has filed a case and hired a large team of legal professionals to challenge what they describe as the illegal detention and persecution of Nnamdi Kanu. They have brought on board 8 lawyers and 10 legal advisors, creating a legal dream team with the capacity to fight on the international front. The presence of this team in Washington, District of Columbia, means that the matter has moved from being a Nigerian dispute to becoming a legal and diplomatic matter in the heart of the American legal system. The target is clear: to pressure the Nigerian government through international law, public opinion, and diplomatic channels until Nnamdi Kanu is released. The world is now being asked to look closely at what is happening in Nigeria, not just through news reports, but through the lens of international justice. The British government, after long-standing silence, has now broken that silence with a decisive move. As a British citizen, Nnamdi Kanu's case is of concern to the United Kingdom. Recently, British officials were allowed to visit Nnamdi Kanu inside the Department of State Services facility. This visit did not happen in isolation. It was part of a wider plan by the British government to offer assistance to ensure the health and legal rights of Nnamdi Kanu are protected and to work closely with his legal representatives moving forward. This marks a significant change in Britain's approach and signals a new level of seriousness in dealing with the case. In a surprising but symbolic gesture, John Stein, who is the governor of the state of North Carolina in the United States of America, reportedly declared a public holiday in support of the movement known as the United States of Biafra. This unprecedented move, while not a direct legal action, adds powerful moral and political weight to the cause. The governor went further to instruct the United States Court Observer, currently in Nigeria, to provide full reports on all aspects of the trial. This level of engagement from a United States state governor is rare and deeply meaningful. It tells the world that Nnamdi Kanu's case is now seen not just as a regional or African issue, but as a matter of global justice. Interestingly, part of the court's recent argument referenced a 2022 British Broadcasting Corporation report, which had initially investigated and reported that Nnamdi Kanu's capture from Kenya was not conducted through lawful channels. This report has now re-entered the legal conversation. The courts are being reminded that if the very process of extraditing someone into a country is unlawful, then the legal consequences of that action must be faced. The law, after all, must not only punish crimes, but must itself be followed strictly. The idea is simple. If you break the law to enforce the law, then what you are doing is no longer justice, but lawlessness. The presence of legal observers from both the United States and the Russian Federation is now being seen as a protective measure. Their presence serves as a strong reminder to the Nigerian judiciary that the world is watching. Transparency must be maintained. Fairness must not be sacrificed. Any attempt to manipulate the outcome of the trial or to suppress evidence in an unlawful manner could now trigger international backlash. In the modern world, courtroom decisions are no longer hidden behind closed doors. They are broadcast, debated, and dissected across the world's media landscape. But behind the legal fireworks and the international involvement lies a deeper concern that is slowly coming to light. Some observers have quietly hinted at disturbing developments inside the Department of State Services detention facility where Nnamdi Kanu is being held. There are suggestions that his well-being may be under threat. Health challenges, isolation, lack of medical attention, and psychological pressure are just some of the issues being whispered about. These claims have not been fully confirmed, but the silence of Nigerian authorities on these points has raised concern. Nnamdi Kanu's legal team has not been silent. They have repeatedly raised alarms over what they describe as the poor and unlawful treatment of their client inside the facility. Appeals have been made to the courts. Letters have been sent to international organizations. Public statements have been issued. The goal is to ensure that if justice is to be served, then it must start with the humane treatment of the accused. A trial that begins with abuse and neglect cannot end in fairness. As July 18, 2025 approaches, tension continues to grow. But there is also a sense of hope, the kind of cautious optimism that fills the hearts of people who have waited too long for something good to happen. The courtroom is no longer just a legal battleground. It has become a global stage. Every word spoken, every piece of evidence presented, every ruling made will echo far beyond the walls of the Federal High Court in Abuja. This case is no longer just about Nnamdi Kanu. It is about the rule of law. It is about the integrity of a nation's justice system. It is about how far a people can go in their quest for freedom and how far a government is willing to go to silence dissent. The involvement of the International Criminal Court, the governments of the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Russian Federation and the actions of courts both in Owerri and Abuja are shaping what could be the most important legal battle of the decade in Nigeria. As the world watches, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Nnamdi Kanu's case is a test of justice, and this time, justice may finally have the upper hand. The chains that have held back truth for so long are beginning to break, and in the eyes of millions of people who have prayed, protested, written, spoken, and hoped, this moment could be the beginning of something truly historic. Even as the world turns its eyes to the upcoming court session on July 18, 2025, there is a sense that what is happening around Nnamdi Kanu is far bigger than just a legal process. It is the unfolding of a political, historical, and moral drama that reflects the broader struggle of a people who feel voiceless, abandoned, and betrayed for decades. The courtroom in Abuja is now more than a place where legal arguments are exchanged. It is a stage where the legitimacy of the Nigerian judicial system is being weighed against the standards of global justice and human rights. In the past few weeks, diplomatic messages have been flowing between embassies, foreign ministries, and international legal organizations. The British High Commission in Nigeria has not only confirmed that Nnamdi Kanu is a British citizen, but has now demanded full consular access to monitor his trial, health, and treatment. This move came after reports began circulating that the Department of State Services had not only denied him proper medical care, but had also restricted his access to legal counsel and family members. In a joint statement signed by British lawmakers and human rights defenders, the British government expressed concern over the unlawful detention and emphasized that no citizen should be treated in a manner inconsistent with international norms. At the same time, the United States State Department released a carefully worded public advisory expressing their deep concern over the reported irregularities in Nnamdi Kanu's abduction from Kenya. Though the statement avoided mentioning any names directly, its implications were clear. The United States government is now closely watching what many activists have described as one of the most politically sensitive trials in Africa. United States lawmakers, especially members of the Congressional Black Caucus, have begun sending letters to the Nigerian embassy, asking for clarifications and pledging to ensure that Nnamdi Kanu receives fair and transparent judicial treatment. Meanwhile, the indigenous people of Biafra, the movement that Nnamdi Kanu has led for years, has become even more active at the international level. In South Africa, Germany, Canada, and Australia, members of the indigenous people of Biafra have organized large demonstrations in front of Nigerian embassies, waving the red, black, and green Biafran flag and holding placards that read, "Free Nnamdi Kanu now, respect international law, and stop illegal detentions." Videos from these protests have gone viral on social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, showing Biafran supporters chanting, singing, and praying for Nnamdi Kanu's release. In Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, where Nnamdi Kanu was abducted in 2021, fresh questions are now being asked about the role played by Kenyan security agencies. A recent investigation by a Pan-African legal organization known as Africa Justice Watch has uncovered disturbing evidence that some elements within the Kenyan government may have collaborated secretly with Nigerian intelligence officers in the abduction of Nnamdi Kanu. If proven true, this would not only damage Kenya's international image, but could also lead to lawsuits in Kenyan courts. Legal analysts say this could open the door to future criminal prosecutions against those who participated in the unlawful arrest and transfer. Back in Nigeria, Nnamdi Kanu's legal team is not only preparing for the July 18th hearing, but has also filed several motions demanding a full investigation into the conditions inside the Department of State Services detention facility. According to recent affidavits submitted by his lawyers, Nnamdi Kanu has been denied access to his doctors, denied food of his choice, and kept in solitary confinement for extended periods. The legal team argues that this treatment amounts to psychological torture and violates both the Nigerian constitution and international human rights standards. This latest motion by the legal team was accompanied by a scathing statement from Aloy Ejimakor, one of Nnamdi Kanu's senior legal counsels. In his words, "What we are witnessing is a calculated plan to destroy a man, not through bullets or bombs, but through silence, isolation, and health neglect. If the Nigerian state wants to try Nnamdi Kanu, let them do so under the sunlight of international law and not in the dark rooms of political persecution." His statement was echoed by Barrister Ifeanyi Ejiofor, another key member of the defense team, who described the Department of State Services as acting above the law and accused them of violating multiple court orders. Pressure is also building inside Nigeria. Across the southeast, particularly in cities like Enugu, Aba, Onitsha, and Awka, supporters of Nnamdi Kanu are holding nightly candlelight vigils, street processions, and peaceful demonstrations. The mood is tense, but disciplined. The message is clear. Biafrans want justice for their leader, but they want it peacefully and legally. Priests, civil society leaders, traditional rulers, and local politicians have now joined the calls for his release, or at the very least, for a transparent, fair, and internationally monitored trial. Pressure is also building inside Nigeria. Across the southeast, particularly in cities like Enugu, Aba, Onitsha, and Awka, supporters of Nnamdi Kanu are holding nightly candlelight vigils, street processions, and peaceful demonstrations. The mood is tense, but disciplined. The message is clear. Biafrans want justice for their leader, but they want it peacefully and legally. Priests, civil society leaders, traditional rulers, and local politicians have now joined the calls for his release, or at the very least, for a transparent, fair, and internationally monitored trial. There are growing concerns that if the trial goes badly, or if any harm comes to Nnamdi Kanu while in custody, it could spark widespread unrest. Already, there have been reports that some youths in parts of Imo State and Anambra State have begun mobilizing. Some are preparing to block highways and shut down markets in protest. The fear among security agencies is that things could spiral out of control if the courts fail to handle the matter with caution and fairness. On the international media front, the story is gaining more traction. News outlets like Cable News Network, British Broadcasting Corporation, Al Jazeera, and even China Global Television Network have begun following the trial more closely. Some journalists have already arrived in Abuja to cover the July 18th session. Their interest is not just about Nnamdi Kanu's fate, but about what the case says about Nigeria's democracy, its judiciary, and its commitment to human rights. Political analysts believe that the Nigerian government is now caught in a difficult position. If they proceed with the trial without addressing the illegality of Nnamdi Kanu's abduction, they risk losing international credibility. If they drop the case altogether, they risk appearing weak before their internal political opponents. And if anything happens to Nnamdi Kanu while in detention, they risk facing a national and international uproar that could shake the foundations of the current administration. The Nigerian Bar Association has also added its voice to the mix. In a recent conference held in Lagos, Senior lawyers from across the country debated the legality of trying someone who was illegally abducted. Most legal scholars present agreed that the Nigerian judiciary must not allow itself to become an instrument of political vengeance. The president of the Nigerian Bar Association warned that if the courts are seen as puppets of the executive, then the rule of law itself is under threat. Back in the courtroom, the mood is becoming more intense with each passing day. The courtroom in Abuja, where the trial is being held, is being fitted with additional security cameras, audio recorders, and seating arrangements for foreign observers. The presence of officials from the International Criminal Court, and possibly even from the United Nations Human Rights Council, is expected to turn this into one of the most watched legal events in Africa this year. As these preparations continue, new details are emerging about how the United States of Biafra intends to press forward with its legal campaign. This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.